This is a 1997 VT Clubsport. This particular one is a 5-speed manual, 195 kilowatt motor. It's a very desirable combination, this car. There was only 1,505 VT Clubsports made, but this one is desirable because it is a 5-speed manual. It is in the VT colour, Bermuda blue, and it's got a factory sunroof. Just a really good combination of car. It's very, very cool, great looking, and of course it is the last with the Holden 5-litre. If you're outside of Australia or you're unfamiliar with the VT 5-litre, they are actually quite significant in the Australian story. Holden was running this motor in their cars really from, the early 70s in some form or another. And this was the very last model that the Holden 5-litre came in. And it's a really awesome combination because it sounds like old school V8, but it's in a new body, new car, new suspension, new weight, new airbags, new safety, just a much newer body, a newer way of driving, but with old school running gear. So I think that these cars are really up there in terms of collectability. Now, I actually have a VT 5-litre as well, guys. Mine is not as nice as this one, and it's a Calais, and it's auto, but I still believe that those are going to be, a little bit of a collector's item in the future. Now, for a long time, these Holden 5-litre cars, I don't think they were really appreciated, and that is because the Series 2 of this exact model that only came a year later had the LS1. And on paper, it's got a lot more torque, a lot more power than this car, but I personally prefer these because these are a much better sound, I think, than the LS1. Although the LS1 doesn't sound bad, these are just a much better noise, and I don't know, I love the characteristics of the Holden 5-litre. It's a really great engine, really reliable, tough as old nails. Because like I said earlier, it's like a really old motor in a new car. Now, I know what some of you guys are thinking. This technically, is not the last car that ever came with a Holden 5-litre, but that is because Holden carried the VS Ute all the way up to sort of 2001, and you could get the 5-litre in that car, and the reason they did that is because they didn't have a VT Ute. However, I still think that this having the last 5-litre plates really still counts because it is newer than the VS, even though, the VS is technically newer in model year. This is a much newer style of car, so I really like this car. This has really held up extremely well. It's got pretty low Ks. It's obviously been cared for, and you can really tell that on the interior as well, which we'll have a look in a second. But this car really does get bonus points for the color. I love this color, the Bermuda blue, in the Clubby and the SS especially. I really think it's really the color to have. As I mentioned before, the one modification this has had is it has been lowered, but it's not a pig. It looks great. I really do like it. It's subtle and it's nice. And honestly, you wouldn't want to go too much lower because of the body kit. Otherwise, you're just going to rip it off every time you go over a speed bump. So, I don't know, it looks really good. I love the two-tone. And if you're not familiar with these cars, anything HSV, anything Club Sport is worth an absolute fortune. So you really don't want to damage it. Here's the main event though, guys, the 195 Holden 5-litre. Now, again, like I said, if you're outside of Australia, you might recognise the car as Vauxhall, GTO or whatever, but this is unique to Australia. This is our Holden-built Australian 5-litre, and this is the latest model that it ever came out in. If you guys follow the channel, I actually have a few cars with this engine in it, and I would like to buy more because they're just great sounding, very torquey, and honestly, not terrible on fuel if you don't give them too much of a hard time. They're really not that bad. I really do like these cars, and these were in Holdens from the early 70s, not in injected form like this, carbureted obviously, but these were in, and slightly different motors, but pretty much, very similar engines, and they were in a lot of Holdens before this. And this is really the main draw of this car, I think. I can imagine though, if you bought these brand new, I don't know how good you'd feel if a few months later the LS1 came in with another 60 kilowatts or whatever it is. However, as a piece of Australian history, I think that these held up really well, which is awesome. Very, very cool cars. They also have hydraulic clutch because this is a new gearbox for the time, the GetRag or JetRag, as I've been corrected. 5-speed manual. And this engine bay is really tidy. It's got its original HSV headers. It's got the HSV intake. It's a really, really good engine bay, and I really like the engine covers and all of that as well. That is a must for me, having the engine covers and all the intake bananas and everything like that. They just look great. We're in the inside of the car now, and it's really nice in here. There are a few differences from the VT GTS that I had the other day, but more similarities than differences. We do have our HSV cluster. We've got this steering wheel, which is in really, really good condition. You know, they're the thick ones like the SS's, but obviously this has the HSV horn pad. The shifter is really awesome with the HSV logo on the center. And of course we have our Clubsport build number on the dash, which is really cool. This particular one is number 207. And we have our sunroof up there, and we have the unique door cards and unique seats for this car. Just like the Jet ES's, these seats really hug you. It is much different than a Calais or anything. That one characteristic though of this gearbox, which is not unique to this car, it's pretty much every Get Rag or Jet Rag, whatever you want to call it, every car from this era, is that they do have a little bit of slop in the gearbox. Now that is not specific to this car. It doesn't mean that it's had a hard life or anything. They all do it. Unlike the T56 and the T5, the other manual gearboxes that Holden ran, those were straight into the box, where this is all shifter linkage. But other than that, it is quite similar to a normal VT executive in here. We don't have automatic headlights. We've got black plastic interior handles. We don't have climate control. We've just got the dials and knobs. It is quite funny that is so similar to the executive. That really started to change though with the Series 2 VT and up. How good does that sound, guys? This car is just, it's really cool. And again, the thing that really does it for me with these old girls is the noise. I mean, just how good is that? Just such a cool noise. Look, I think you would be spewing back in the day in the late 90s if you just bought this one and then the LS1 comes out with a lot more power. But looking back now, I do prefer these. These just, I don't know, everything about this is really cool. They go like a HSV should. They sound like a HSV should. They're just great, and the important bits are premium. You know, the steering wheel, the shifter, a lot of the touch points, the seats. But you know, they did go quite a bit further with some of the later models, and just this car, you know, in its Bermuda blue, it's just great. It's a real experience. Now look, they're not crazy fast, guys. We're not doing an 8-second pass, but again, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. They're great cars, and they're not slow. Probably not the best as a commuter in terms of fuel economy. You know, this one, our average says 17.4. Now, is that true? I don't know. It's a 25-year-old GM computer, but my VT 5-litre is maybe slightly different, slightly better in terms of fuel economy, but it's also an auto and it has lower gears. But it's definitely a very healthy car. I don't know, I really like this, and it's a real experience to be able to drive one of these in such good condition. The old Holden 5-litre. Just sounds great. And I love that this one also has retained its original radio. That's another big bonus. I just not a big fan of aftermarket. Not a big fan of aftermarket radios in the VT VXs. I really do like the standard ones. They just work really well. But just gearing down in this car and just accelerating is just so addicting. It just sounds great. I'm already really getting used to that gearbox. Now, like I mentioned before, if you haven't driven one of these before, the gearboxes initially they feel like they've got a bit of slop in them, but it's not the box itself. It's the gear linkage, and all of the Get Rags do it. All of them, the V6s, the V8s, when they're fresh built box, you know, they all do it. And it's because they're not. It's because they have the shifter linkage rather than straight in the gearbox like the T5 or the T56. But yeah, guys, real privilege to be able to drive something like this. It's a very cool car, a really awesome piece of Australian history. And honestly, I want one. If I was to buy a clubby, as cool as the VXs are, and they are, and they're faster, they, you know, but these old ones, they just have a bit of soul. I don't know. bit of character. Yeah, very, very cool car, guys. Especially this one in this color with a sunroof. Yeah, I love it. All right, guys, well, sometimes in these videos, I become the passenger princess. I am not driving, and the owner's just gonna show me how these really go.
Stay in the left 2 lanes.
I reckon we almost hit 50
In
there.
700.
Really cool. You know, this is what HSVs are for. These cars are actually for running between the lines. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I have really enjoyed my time with the old Iron Lion. This is a really special car for a few reasons, like I mentioned in the video. It's rare, it's the poster color, it's manual, and it's the, you know, it's really cool. I think that these are really going to be proper collector's items, and a lot of these good ones left like this are going to be living in museums, I think, or living in people's factories and stuff. I think that it'd be pretty rare to see one that's daily driven. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I certainly have, and if you guys like your car on the channel, then please feel free to get in touch. Otherwise, thank you for liking, following along, subscribing. I really do appreciate it.